just says oil and gas, it doesn't say telephone or electrical.
So I would ask my comment.
Okay with that, Doug? Still on Article 4.
Just looking at the rationale of item 16.
On page 22.
Testing water people within a mile and a half. There again, you're talking about a good bit of the town. You gotta test everyone's well. And I guess I'm not saying there couldn't be some, whatever your major construction project, there could be something affecting wells, but I don't think you're talking anywhere near that kind of distance. Abutting property owners, there again, maybe, but I'm not even sure if there's justification for that.
Wasn't it put in there because, for fear if they're blasting on bedrock to get a foundation in, that it could disturb well water, so that's why that was put in there.
And it does exist in other windmills too.
Yeah,
Although I don't think it has to be 7,500 feet.
but I think there has to be a requirement, at the very minimum, saying something about if they do any blasting for foundation work. If they're just digging, I don't think that's a big deal. They don't, that hasn't proved to be a problem in the past, but if they're blasting, I would sure.
Couldn't it be on condition of blasting?
It's still, some of these foundations are pretty deep and they can dig down pretty deep and you can disrupt it then. And you've also got to build in your roads, which could have an effect on it.
That you said 20,
I'd say something like 2,500 feet and not 7,500 feet, but they don't be particularly expensive.
What that 500? 2,500? Yep.
Or whatever you choose.
Everybody seems to agree with that, Roger.
Is it with blasting too, Roger?
Yeah, blasting and construction, period.
If they do blasting, it's 2,500?
Yeah, so we're digging.
Possibly. The one thing you gotta remember is we don't live in a densely populated area, so it wouldn't be really a lot of, we just be excited, it won't, it's not like there's a house like in the city. We'll cover a lot of ground.
Especially those foundations, curving roads,
Yeah.
Time you build in the pad for the cranes and everything else, they do disrupt a lot of land.
So what are you saying? What are you saying?
What are we talking about? The 2,500 feet? Where do you want to go more?
I'd say if it was blasting, it would be more.
There'll be
Maybe we
more.
should look at the existing standards for that, Roger. Come back to it.
Okay,
Come back to
we'll
it.
come back to it, get a reasonable figure.
Note that, so we'll come back one. Page 21, item 11. It's a given you're going to construct and operate to minimize the impact on electric clearing. How do we qualify the loss of open space areas? What measurement are we going to use for that? Land affected by conservation easements, a lot of that hands on.
I think that on your ag and markets law, they're trying to.
Roger, why are you calling me? No.
It was
It's
me.
Jeff. No, it's Jeff.
Anyway, there's requirements on the ag and markets law, about building rooms, and they restrict them to the edges of fields and such as that.
But we can stick a house in the middle of 10 acres,
I know that.
but they can't put a windmill up in the middle of 10 acres.
They prefer that.
So I just want clarification on what we mean by here, because most landowners are gonna minimize the amount of land use. They're gonna put it on the edge of a field. They're not gonna go down the middle to make a triangle piece or a diamond piece. They wanna square it up. They're gonna do everything they can to minimize the use of good tillable acreage.
It's most, we're doing this in case there's somebody other than most. This is pretty important.
As long as we're going to make that clear for a lot of things.
But as long as it maintains a setback, what difference would that make then?
Right. I'm just trying to get an understanding how we measure the loss of open space
I
areas.
agree.
It's pretty vague.
Then again, we have restrictions for putting them in, basically in the woods because of the DEC and their protected plants and stuff like that, interferes with it too.
But all that's controlled by DEC, wetlands, all that.
You know, what if we just did something like existing applicable standards? Like, then that way it would be generalized where you get to ag markets, DEC, whatever, it would be specific and everything that we actually enact.
Because technically, as a landowner going through FSA or ASCS, I can cut a tree down, but I can't remove a stump without permission.
Right,
So that's all covered.
yeah.
So if we just use the applicable standards, it would be something,
Yeah,
we
because
wouldn't,
even
we wouldn't be adding, it would
the
be
US
existing.
Department of Interior gets involved in it too because of wetland implant.
How would you word that?
You've got to read where it conforms to, what's it called, regulation.
To governing agencies, or would that be? Applicable.
Designed, constructed, and operated according to regulations established by
Existing standards.
existing, you want to put DEC, ASCS, those types of
Why don't
things.
you just put applicable standards?
Yeah,
It
they're-
covers
I'll go with
everything.
that, because I mean, the DEC is going to be one of the biggest ones around.
Read that off then. Sure. Any ISWEF shall be designed, constructed, and operated according to applicable standards.
feeling was the wording on 17 uh, is phrased in a sort of a negative manner as opposed to, I mean, these are all issues that the board should consider, but you know, I guess my feeling is it should be more worded that something to the nature of inciting you know, ISWF, the board shall consider you know, all of these various criteria. But to say that one cannot be constructed to impair the value of a non-participating land, you're just looking at litigation, because all they have to do is say, you know, bring in an appraiser who says, wait a minute, my land, you know, is, you know, of that much less value, so we cannot cite it there. No, these are all considerations that need to be taken into account, but they don't necessarily veto, you know, any citing of a site or any citing of a journal. So that these are all issues that the board, factors that the board should be considered in citing.
How about when reviewing site placement of ISWEF, the following issues should be part of consideration?
That's a good idea.
Yeah, or, yeah.
That moves us from, maybe we, right at the table, see the end of, you know,
I mean, all these are, you know, certainly factors to be considered, but
but we don't want to be.
none of them are individually determinative.
I agree with you about the, opening us up to liability litigation, whatever we, let a realtor determine whatever. It's pretty vague, if it says it can impair the value or something like that.
But you know, your citing can also be governed by the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, and the FAA.
That might.
Because of your microwave transmission signals, your radar, and but again, that would be up to those agencies to determine that.
So what you're saying is not limited just to those, right? Wording should be that it should include the issues identified here, but not inclusive, just inclusive of them. It should include anything, any other factors, right, Roger? How would you word that?
I haven't figured it out. You're right, but comfortable wording.
Maybe the board should consider the following factors and have another catch-all. As well as any other factors the board deems appropriate. so that when a determination is made, the findings should deal with each of these factors,
As well as others.
as well as
Anything else that's
Right.
pertinent.
But, you know, if you're saying the board has to at least look at these factors,
Right.
you know, they have to address them, you know, one way or another. And in many of these, if in fact a permit was granted, some of these may say that, you know, okay, they've looked at such and such a factor, and it may impact someone, but, and if the conclusion is that it's to a minimal effect, that's what the findings would state. Or it might be just the opposite, and that's why they reject the permit or a site.
I'm working on probably the world's longest run on sentence right here. Trying to show them enough. Issues as early as our first.
I think you could put, you know, to consider something, considering the following factors, and then just, you know, have that checklist, you know, more in vertical order saying.
And then at the bottom is any other pertinent factors.
Yes.
Get this, Brad?
No, I just,
Neither by, so. Don't understand, when reviewing site placement of a proposed ISWEF, the following will be considered. And then, instead of just a paragraph form, list those in the vertical form. And the last consideration would be any other pertinent factor.
I think, yeah, I'd use the word shall rather than will, but I think that first one might have to be reworded a little just to fit. Well, we could just say solar access on the property of a non-participant.
Or unrestricted solar access to it.
Or if they're just considering as a factor, you know, the solar access.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the intent is not restricted.
That makes it a little bit easier for that first one, right? Then list the other ones vertical with the thing at the end about pertinent factors. Any other pertinent issues? Anything else in section 4?
Divide, all right?
What's that, right?
On number 18, page 23 on the back.
I thought they already did.
And they would be almost putting us in a position of enforcing.
Seems to me that between
Yeah.
the developer and the.
There's motors in all these turbines that run that have to have electricity anyway, so they're already doing the same thing.
Yeah,
That's really not our business.
The only time it would be any of our business is if for some reason the pilot agreement was, you know, based on consumption or based on production. And most pilot agreements are based on the rated capacities of turbines, you know, not what they produce. If they stand still all year, you know, the pilot agreement still gets paid. So, yeah, I guess I don't see where it's any of our business.
So we should take her out.
Look at number 18, page 23, top of the page. ISWEF shall be metered to measure consumption of electricity The applicant shall pay the local utility provider its established fees for such consumption. We're trying to determine if that's anything that we would be concerned with. Take it out there?
Don't realize who's paying for it.
Moving on, Article 4. B. 406B?
406B.
Well, there's a minimum state for requirement of 30 feet, so I just, it says on total height, it must exceed 30 feet. Of course, you got a 400-foot windmill and a 328-foot rotor on diameter, I mean, you can figure that out.
Yeah.
But it is height dependent. really.
Yeah, it is height
You should have a
dependent.
minimum of 30.
So we should have a minimum.
But the actual is gonna be dependent.
It's gonna be more than that, if you're basing it on the ring window.
Some more.
Be a minimum of 30 feet, but dependent on the height of the window. Is that correct, Roger?
How about if just reverse that? So depending on the height of the windmill with a minimum of 30 feet.
There you go.
That's what it said the first time.
That goes on. Going on 4.
4.08, number 1.
Page 24.
3,560 feet from property line of any non-participating property owner. To me, it ought to be based on times the height of whatever the turbine is, either 1, 1.5, or 2. 3,500 is 3/4 of a mile. I haven't found anything that I've read in that combination of support.
Excuse me, could you speak up?
I said 3,560 feet from a non-participating party line, I think, is unrealistic. It ought to be based on net times the height of the turbine, whether it be 1, 1.5, or 2.
Location.
14?
We have a
I have not been able to find any article that would suggest that 3,560 feet is necessary.
Actually, I think that's too close to my house.
Way too close.
we don't even,
They got one scheduled for 1,400 feet from my house.
what are your thoughts, Gordon?
This is a property line, not a house.
Correct.
Structure's gonna be different than a property line.
Okay.
So if you put a
So
structure
it'd be
anywhere in the
closer than to
house,
my property line, 1,400 feet.
Maybe.
I know,
True.
let's keep it, let's keep it, we're not a workshop here. That's all right. What's your pleasure, guys?
Nobody will agree with me, 'cause I always supported 1 kilometer, which is basically 3,200 feet, but I would drop to half mile, which is 2640.
I go to 32 myself, that's what I anywhere.
The thing, the big factor there is noise and not so much other, and that all depends on your environment. But I can find several. at 3,200 feet.
What are you saying, Doug?
I think 2x to 3x the height of the turbine.
Because if you don't do that, then you, the shadow flicker noise on the side of potential.
Supposedly, safe sound is 35 dBA,
I think
nights
it's
40 dB.
35, 60.
and you gotta be at least a kilometer away to reach that 35 dB level.
Again, you're talking to a residence, not a property.
Okay.
You got a lot of land up on the hill, but there's no houses around, why do you need that big setback?
Answer the question.
I don't know.
Hello?
Answer the question. You
Right.
guys,
Stay within the workshop, guys. Let's get this discussion going here.
Your setback applies to your whole township, you can't just limit it to one area.
So far I'm hearing 3,200 feet and 2 to 3 times turbine height,
I would go to turbine height to a residence, to a participating property owner, but a non-fire, I would go to the climate.
If it was a resident, I could understand that, but if it's vacant, no.
You can't always, that's gonna be vacant.
At the time it's put up, if it's vacant, that's the time. And if they decide to build there afterwards, they know the windmill's there.
The value's the guy's property. So,
The local owner.
Screw them, basically.
There's a lot of property owners that argue that devalue their property if they can't do what they want. If you talk this setback, you're talking almost 1,000 acres of power. And you're talking 7 years of property owners involved. It's not realistic.
They each make more money.
you wouldn't be able
Stay
to,
within us, guys, stay within.
you wouldn't be able to put up that many towers at distance.
No, you wouldn't. I mean, I said I would drop back a half mile on not participating. You go with 2 or 2.5 on participating. Times lower. Eventually.
I think you gotta determine the property line versus residence. And if there's no structure there, it doesn't need to be that big.
I guess all I'm doing is going to a non-participating person, their property line is a half mile. If you're participating in the project, it would be like 2.5 inches. Which means to be about 1,250 feet.
They'll protect both interests.
That's both interests.
Because what they will do, you want to put a windmill here, this person destroys their ability to build what they want to build on their land 5 years down the road.
But you're denying current landowner a chance to make it work too. So which is right or which is wrong? Somebody may win, somebody may lose. So you're gonna say this person has more right than this person?
There's no way.
There is. So if you go with participating and not participating?
You're
saying two separate.
Two separate things. You have a non-participant, in other words, you don't want them around you. So we go with a half mile or a kilometer to their property line. So let's say they got a 5-acre plot, okay? The reason you go to their property line is we get down the road, I want to sell an acre off to my kids or my parents so I can build a house. If we go to the residents of the non-par, they can't build that house. They would fall in the setback.
At the time of construction. He's giving you a, you're giving a level.
I mean, we can always say what if. what if this, what if that? And we could all come up with all reasons why we shouldn't do anything. But based on today, what is the best thing for the community, the landowner, whatever?
Let's try to separate this out. Do we want to do a standard setback from property line,
Yes.
or do you want to split it up between participating and non-participating?
Yeah, that's, that Waterman, he owns the lease with DEP. Yeah.
I want standard.
I gotta think this out a little bit.
Yeah?
Standard.
Well, my original, when we started this thing, my original was a half mile, and I thought about it with Roger, and we thought a kilometer might be fair, and now we're back to a half a mile. And, you know, it's a tough thing, because like, there's the non-powers and the powers. I mean, you know, if we want wind development in this town, we gotta compromise someplace, but surely the people that don't want it in their backyard shouldn't have to have it in their backyard. So I don't know if there's a way that you could, you know, one standard for one and one for the other. I just don't know if that can be done.
I don't think there could be one standard.
Let me just go back to my original question. Do we want to go for a set standard from property line, or do you want to split it up between participant and non-participant? Just so we have some baseline to go with, because we're going to jump back and forth.
Well, the participant, non-participant seems to work. I mean, that's a beginning of a fair
Compromise.
compromise.
That's what I believe.
Okay. Done?
Jim, in your state suggestions, they go far and not far.
Pardon?
The
The state does?
Yeah. Far and not far.
What do they know?
Bruce, you with us yet?
I'm still not comfortable with it.
I would be comfortable with a non-participant versus participant. But it needs to be less than the distance you're talking.
Because I'm looking at the noise factor involved in this, and that's got to be the biggest issue nowadays, is the bigger turbines. Noise
Half mile
factor.
isn't really that far.
Half mile, 26, 40 miles an hour. I said you gotta be at least a kilometer to have your noise level drop to 35 dB. I mean, I've been around these wind farms, I've heard that noise, so. And if you're, during the summertime, you got your windows open, you're trying to sleep at night because it's so hot, you got a window out there, picking up 40, 50 dB.
So you're saying that the differences between the existing turbines we have in the areas now and these new ones are strictly height, and these newer ones are gonna be louder?
Yeah.
Do some research.
4 years.
Because I lived next to the
I
ones
know you do.
for 12 years,
Yeah.
and I very seldom hear them. I mean, I went hiking the other day, and I heard the cars down on Center Road, and I heard Tom Settle's milker pump, but I did not hear the windmills on the hill.
Are you on the planning board and you haven't seen the new windmill? You have not seen the new windmill.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
That's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
He's also a leaseholder of DEP, so. Little conflict, but there is a state law in regard
Let's
to
get
that.
back to the workshop here, you guys.
If he's a
Any
leaseholder,
more
if
disruption?
he's a
We
leaseholder
can
and he's
adjourn.
here on the planning board, that's bullshit.
We can adjourn this right now if there's any more disruption.
Well, Jimmy, if he's a leaseholder, he's sitting there making laws, he shouldn't have the
I
right.
understand, David, I
He should,
understand. I
bow
understand.
himself up.
Dave,
Do we have
Hey,
leaseholders on the
hey,
board?
hey.
Shut up, Joe, I can talk if I want, and I'm just saying, if he's a leaseholder
Okay,
with
we heard you.
DEA, he shouldn't be just,
David, I heard you. Okay.
okay, as simple as that.
Any more disruptions, we'll adjourn the meeting and carry it on next time. You just gotta be civil there.
Well, there's some ethics too.
It's actually state law that you're supposed to recuse yourself.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
and that's why nobody trusts local government.
What time is it?
freaking grass.
The ones that are here, the ones in Denver, you know, are going to be
Yeah, right here.
That's why I had to
Got a question for you. Huh? I got a question for you. It's got nothing to do with this. I got plans last night. Are you confident? We still get along. He's my father. I broke a truck.